I'm thankful you're here. I'm thankful the love of my life and inspiration is here as well. You have her to thank for some of the information that you're going to hear, because she gave up some of her time for me to be. She says, "You're on the computer again?" My youngest son asked my brother, "How come people ask Dad so many questions?" He said, "Well, I guess he must have some answers." To give you a little background, my whole working life was in healthcare administration. Hospital assistant administrator, nursing home administrator, over home health. So I grew up in a rest home. I knew how to take care of patients. And my undergraduate degree is in medical technology. My master's is in public health. So I come at growing from a whole different perspective than most. How many of you have ever tried growing food? Now, Jill will call it, where'd she go? Oh, yes, I might know. She says, gardening. I don't care what you know about gardening. I'm here to reshape your perspective, because I want the most out of my sweat equity, and it's going to take it. I want the most out of my sweat equity that I can get. And so, although I've grown, I started out with radishes about 4 years old. I see some smiles. And although I graduated and came along and we raised most of what we ate for a number of years, and then I was farm manager over at Fletcher for a while. And I began doing growing workshops. In fact, one day, one of the gals, we were growing greens, and we had 10, 30 by 100 foot greenhouses, and we were growing on tabletops. Had some of the nicest lettuce you've ever seen. They said, "What do we do with all this stuff?" I said, "You pick a great big bowl and you go to the highest end restaurant you can find and you ask for the owner, which was the last chef, or the chef." And they came back and they said, "Wow, that's the easiest thing we've ever done in our lives." I said, "Well, what'd you do?" They said, "Well, we just showed up with this bowl and he did." "How much can you bring me?" He didn't ask us price. He didn't ask us anything else. "How much can you supply me?" Because he knew that the difference between his cost and what he was going to make out of it, it didn't matter what it cost. And the kids said when we did a health fair, they'd go to Mom and say, "Mom, you need to go try that lettuce over there. We'd eat it. It's not bitter." Yeah. There are secrets to growing that I need to transfer to you. And that, if you'll turn in your outline, and if you want to make a donation for the cost of the outlines, that is actually a booklet. Turn to the last page. There's some each way. The last page, our objective is how to annually produce up to 8,000 pounds of nutrient-dense produce, 5 to over 582, it should be, times the nutrients, in a 12 by 36 foot space year-round.
Hallelujah. Now you're talking.
In 30 minutes or less a day. And I can tell you how to do that pretty much without pest and disease. The growers using some of these methods say they are experiencing 2 to 3 times the production on half the work. Or instead of growing forage hay for 1 cow-calf pair per acre, supporting 4 to 5 cow-calf pairs per acre, up to 9. And I know the people that are doing it, they're growing beef. I'm a veggie, so I'm safe. But they're growing beef that way, and the butcher said that's the best beef they've seen in a long, long, long time. So, how do you produce 2 to 3 times the yield, organically grown with minimal pest and disease impact? Better animal, and better than that, better human health. Anybody interested in that?
Yes.
Okay, that's where we're headed. Now, I need to know, for those of you who want to be able to see, it's right here. We'll hope to cure that. My question of you this afternoon is, do you have a consecrated brain? Because I would suggest to you that if you expect to get out of here alive, you better have a consecrated brain. Just saying. We're not going to take the one we have with us. We better surrender it to the Lord so He can do a brain transplant. Now, we were supposed to be talking about our greatest need, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of my favorite authors says that our greatest need, a revival of true godliness among us, is the greatest and most urgent of all our needs. To seek this should be our first work. Now, I've done a lot of growing classes. I talk about food production. Jill talks about gardening. That's what Alan does. That's too much work. I want more out of my work. But I am telling you, I'm going to cover growing. But silver is over $36 an ounce for the third time in history. Last night it was $36.52 when I checked it.
Was that gold or silver?
Silver, $36.52 an ounce. Third time in history it's been that high. Since Trump took office, the COMEX has bought and secured over 2,000 tons of gold. The billionaires in this world, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all those big boys with the money, incidentally, 1% of the population owns more than 50% of the world's goods. They are cashing in on the companies that they have and taking that money and putting it into gold and silver. Because they expect, I need to tell you, we had a little bit of money one time. That's been years. No, it hadn't really. And I got permission and I invested it in the stock market. Using the suggestions of one of the names I'm going to tell you, when I checked, I had a 48% annual return. Now, I decided it was time to get out. And I did. And I don't plan to repeat that anytime soon. But Porter Stansberry, and that's that name, says, well, you can go to Conrad Vine on YouTube and listen to The Great Reset. Okay? He's got another one. Conrad Vine. Okay? And the expectation of Porter Stansberry is that Trump is going to precipitate a reset. Because if it happens sooner, it won't, and you can control it, it won't be as bad as if it happens later and you can't control it. Okay? Now, last Thursday, Porter Stansberry came out with one that says, AI, Trump and all these guys are betting on AI. Now, I told our friend Monroe, I think he's right. Because I have read that national ruin will follow national apostasy.
Yep.
And we have not had national apostasy yet. Okay? And I've also read that when they cry peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them. Now I'm going to give you Alan Kennedy's opinion. And that is, I believe we will have a reset. I think that Trump will bet on AI and these guys will turn them. Look at the trillions of dollars of money that has been invested in America. I believe that he will have the popular opinion to pull it off and bring it up here. I believe there will probably be even peace in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Oh, that's a far fetch. But Donald Trump can't save you or me. He can't save America. Only the Lord can do that. And so I come to the conclusion, I was in Morganton, North Carolina's Department of Agriculture conference room there for a cram course. I was going to take my exam to get a North Carolina pesticide applicator's permit. Because to manage the farm and spray pesticides on 14 acres of blackberries, I had to have it. That's what the wholesaler wanted. And I was there. And I listened to a non-Adventist tell me that the pesticides are systemic. That means you can rub the peeling right off the apple and you can rub it down till there isn't anything left before you can get rid of the pesticide. And then, to add insult to injury, he said, their frontal lobe active. How do you like that? He didn't know what I knew. The frontal lobe is whether I'd make a decision for right or wrong, to follow or not follow, to be saved or not saved. And I believe from that I had a burden to share about growing. And it's coming even more clear because within the last 2 years, the technology is there. It's available to be able to grow. Well, let me tell you what Jonathan Keller, he has Penn Valley Farms in Pennsylvania. He's an organic grain grower. He said, as long as I follow these practices, I have minimal pest and disease in my organic crops, and they're paying me up to 3 times as much for my same organically produced grain. Well, that sounds pretty good to me. I never had it that good growing up. That's why I've got this hoe over here. Because that's what we always had to use. But I'm thankful that in Amos 3:7 that God does nothing but He revealeth His secrets unto His servants the prophets. And I want to be one of those servants because I want to know what He can reveal to me. And I'm amazed every day at the beautiful symphony that He has given us in plants growing. Did you know that for every plant there are 3 to 5 bacteria that supply the nutrients to that plant? The plant gives off 10 to 30% of its sap through its roots, feeds those microbes, and when it needs a copper, it says, please send me a copper. Now, it has to be water soluble. It can't be a penny in the ground. Water soluble, and the microbe reaches out and grabs it. I had my good friends, the Martin family, using EM1. Dr. Tara Haga from Japan. It's a formulation of, I think it's 843 different species of microbes. One for every one, so you don't have to go give the watermelons there 4 or 5. And that drives me to distraction. But it's a symphony. We just didn't know about it. It wasn't that it wasn't there. It's always been there. Porter Stansberry, you need to look that up. If you want more information, don't take what I'm telling you as the gospel. If you want more information to look this up, I'll send you the links. I'll send you the stuff. And I've done that with several people, and they say, oh, wow, thank you. Porter Stansberry. We are in an inflation mode right now. We have $27 trillion worth of debt. If you go on the computer and look at the national debt clock, it's 37, not 27. I'm sorry. I just missed it by 10 trillion. It's the total off-books debt is just under 200 trillion. 6 trillion of that debt comes due when? In June of this year.
This is June.
This is June. Yes, this month. What does the government that has the ability to print money do when they can't sell bonds? They don't want to default. So what do? Print money. When you print money and put it into the monetary system, what does that do? It causes inflation to go up. The value of money goes down. We will have the illusion of ownership. There will be a general devaluation and a systematic impoverishment. How many of you are familiar with the term bail-in? Bail-in has been passed by the government. The banks, if you have money in the bank and the bank goes bad, it used to be that the government would bail the bank out, right? That's what bailout means. Now, if your bank goes under and you have money in their bank, they can bail in, and that means take your money to square up their debts. It's on the books.
Get FDIC.
Yep. Central bank digital currency. Nobody really wants it, except those who want to control everything. Central banks are buying gold. And I think we need to have a preparation by living in the country, being out of debt, producing our own food, foraging, wildcraft. Yeah, maybe you get a little bit of gold and silver. Conrad Vine talks about that. But I have a problem with much of that because we're told that it'll canker and all that stuff. Yeah, moth-eaten. Yeah. I think we'd do better to buy some literature. Now, this is right here 2025. That's what we're facing. This world faced it back there in Egypt. There was a dream the Pharaoh had. 7 good years and 7 lean years. You all know that dream. Do you remember in Genesis 47 what happened in the 7 lean years?
Everybody sold their bodies.
That was the 3rd year. The 1st year, we want something to eat. Give me your money. 2nd year, we don't have any money, but we've got animals. Give me your animals. Sell me your animals. So that 3rd year, we're hungry. All we have is our land and our bodies. Okay? You can be slaves, and I'll take your property. And years 4, 5, 6, and 7, they were sharecroppers on Pharaoh's land, paying him 20% of their production. Now, I used to think, well, I better not say that. Joseph, I thought, was a pretty good guy. But I think he preceded even the Jews right there. And it's in the Bible. Go read it. Genesis 40. Do you think it's going to be any better the next time around? I doubt it. So let's talk. Oh, Jacob lived in Canaan. He didn't trade Canaan land. And he had some silver and some food that he sent down for food, right? I think that admonition should hold for us. We need something of value outside the system that we can barter and we can use. So let's talk about growing. You ready?
Food is going to be the new gold.
It will be.
Prophecy said that, food is going to be a big problem. If we know that, then we should be.
What are we doing about it?
That admonition.
Yep, I'd say you're right.
That's why did she say anything?
Well, I agree. Grains, fruits, yeah.
You can't do it yesterday.
No, it's hard to go out. We have a really good friend down in the Delano community. He's now the pastor down there. I said to him, Conrad, I do these seminars and these people think they have a number 10 can of seeds. And they think when times get bad, they're going to go scratch the ground, spread the seeds out, and they're going to eat out of it. And he grinned from one ear to the other. I said, but we both know better than that, don't we? He said, we sure do. Grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables in proper combination contain all the elements of nutrition, and when properly prepared, they constitute the diet that best promotes physical and mental strength. When I was in the School of Health, Dr. Register was commissioned by the World Council on Athletics to determine which was the best diet for athletic performance. What diet do you figure they came up with? That
Daniel diet.
Steak and potatoes? The Daniel diet. I would suggest we can't do any better than that. What color are these two? Red and green. What color are the other two? Okay. Now, it's the test. You ready? Are you a good test taker? There are 2 white dots between the 2 of them. What I want you to do is focus on the white dot over here, and then without blinking, look at the white dot between the 2 white boxes. What color are they?
Yeah.
Blue and pink. I want to change your perception this afternoon of growing. Because I don't like using the hoe. There's a better way. And I want to talk about those various things. Linus Pauling of Vitamin C said, you can trace every sickness, every disease, and every ailment to a mineral deficiency. Dr. Arden Anderson is a physician in the Air Force, and real medicine, real health. Derek talked about some of this, and I appreciate it. You have this in your handout. But the thing I want you to see is that of the traditional diet, 400% nutritional requirements. So unprocessed. 96% unprocessed. Our sad diet, as Derek I totally agree with him, is I'm wrong. The traditional diet was 95%, 6% processed, maybe. The Western diet is 96% processed. How are you going to get the nutrition out of that? You're not. It's largely fats, sugars, and empty calories that we eat more and more and more of trying to get our nutritional needs met. Questions? Iodine levels. In 1946, Albert Carter Savage, a dentist in Kentucky, wrote a little booklet entitled Remineralization. Will it reach you in time? And he went to the store and bought 2 different batches of spinach and tested them for iodine, and they averaged 1,100 parts per billion of iodine. And then he went out into his garden and picked some of his spinach and tested it, and it tested 640,000 parts per billion for iodine. Well, do you want to eat 11? Well, let's say 11 leaves of spinach, or do you want to have to eat 582 to get the same amount of iodine? I mean, this isn't rocket science. I looked and looked for this graph, and I didn't know for a long time that it existed. You'll notice that when mechanization of tillage, plowing and disking came in, minerals tanked. When ammonium nitrate from World War II was used as a fertilizer, minerals went down again. When pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides were introduced, it went down again. And then when genetically modified GMO with glyphosate was introduced, the minerals went down even further. And what happened to disease? Out the roof.
All by design.
All by design. This is not a real, this is kind of a smelly illustration because it involves 4,000 pigs. There was a Dan Skousen who was a veterinarian, and he said that if he came upon a farmer who had a problem with scours, which is diarrhea in cattle, his first question was, what sort of food do you use? If they used genetically modified food, he suggested that they go back to true food. And he said, almost without exception, in a month's time when he went back, everything was fine. What this guy did, Mike McNeil, he randomly divided these 4,000 pigs into two barns. Barn 1 had non-GMO and grains not treated with Roundup or glyphosate, and it removed from the water. Barn 2 had GMO feed, glyphosate-treated grains, and on-site well water. Barn 1, 10,000 more profit. That meant 30,000 more profit in a year, and there was one dead pig. Barn 2, it took 3 weeks longer to fatten, and they lost 20% of the pigs. If you had 2,000 pigs in a barn and you lost 20%, how many is that?
400.
400.
That's surreal.
That's for real. I'm showing you this. Monsanto doesn't want you, or didn't want you, now Bayer doesn't want you to know this. But there's a real reason you need to be thinking carefully about, incidentally, the parts per million of glyphosate that they had of 13 parts per billion, or per million, is 12,700 and some times higher than what many advocacy groups say is a safe, allowable level for humans.
And it's concentrated in that meat.
Incidentally, glyphosate is not linear.
Nope.
Meaning that the less you get, the more toxic it can be for you. High concentrations of glyphosate are not nearly as bad as the small concentrations. Just thought I'd throw that in.
The way the body recognizes the lysine part of that chain.
Yeah. So my question of you is, where are you on this scale? Derek talked about the SAD diet. There it is right there. It can be, sometimes, might be 100% of the recommended daily allowance. But if you begin to be careful about what you're eating, and poorly grown organic can be down in that range. But if you begin to get up from there, you can leave the terminal disease and lifestyle diseases. You may get infectious diseases, and then you begin to get raw, ripe, mineralized heirloom in blackberries. When I was there, we had the people were raving on the sweetness of the they've never been. The wholesaler didn't like them. He didn't want them. They wanted berries that were in color black, but were actually green. Okay?
It's smushed in the containers.
Yeah.
It lasts long.
Long shelf life. Absolutely. Well, that's part of the learning curve. But you can get up here in the 5,000 and 10,000 times your RDA if you're consciously careful about your dietary intake.
What is a high ormus?
What?
What is high ormus?
High ormus? That would require, ormus materials would require a 2-hour presentation. You need to go Google it.
All right.
Good question. Perfect question. Because I can show you pictures of corn that's 13 feet tall. Guy standing on the top of a step ladder. That's not EPA approved or whatever. Yeah, you know. Top of a step ladder to reach the top of the corn. 4 to 5 ears of corn on a stalk. Ormus. Look it up.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, my question of you is, how much nutrition do you want to have a consecrated brain and get ready to leave here alive?
Hallelujah.
I talked to you about the objective. We need to, and somebody needs to keep track of time for me. Where are we?
26.
You got 32 more minutes.
32 more? Oh my, we can cover a world. What my goal is when I look at growing is I want to look at everything involved and optimize it. Okay? Water. Every one of the plain communities uses drip irrigation. It just rained out there. How many of you think it's going to rain all the rest of the summer like this? It ain't going to happen. So they choose the highest spot in the community, pump water up there. Englewood has a $40,000 40,000-gallon inflatable tank. They drip the whole place off of that one tank. They have water that goes down onto a water wheel, and it pumps it all the way back up over there on the hill. Water, okay? Now you can use minerals, rotted bark and leaves, and compost to increase your soil friability and your soil structure. My friends, the Martins, used to be, well, we had a really bad rain, and my question was, how much runoff did you have? And they had some runoff for a little while, and then they piped it and drained it and got rid of it. Now you go ask Albert. I did just the other day. It had poured down rain. How much runoff do you have? Oh, we didn't have any. Because they've been using no-till. They've been using cover crops. They're using the compost that I need to tell you about. We'll run out of time. And the soil structure has more air in it, more place for water. I used it on our house plants. I was having to water one of the house plants at least every third day, sometimes every other day, and now I can water it once a week, and it's still happy. So it does all sorts of things. Seed. I've got plenty. You can do it. Incidentally, I brought a pallet of 40-pound bags of compost. The guys that are using it is, here's another assignment. You need to look up the name Siegfried Lübke. He was an Austrian physician that developed a method of making compost called controlled microbial compost. He moved his soil organic matter level. He bought a farm. He wanted more nutrients than what he was eating. He bought a farm, and in 10 years he moved it from 1.6 to 1.8. Then he moved his electron microscope onto the farm and began studying the enzyme reactions in compost formation. He identified over 4,000, and he began grouping the microbes by function. The first function in making that is formation of humus. The second set of microbes making it multiplies humus. The third set of microbes stabilizes humus. My friend Marlon on the farm, I gave him an article. He read it and he said, "Hey, can we do this? This is good." I said, "I don't know. Let me look." You're looking at turning a compost windrow 11 feet wide and 7 feet tall every day for the first couple of weeks, and then based on temperature and humidity thereafter, and in 10 or 12 weeks, you have finished compost. There's 407 or 11 tons of compost in that 330-foot windrow. But Albert said, we got some. Jill said, well, instead of buying a $250,000 worth of equipment, why don't you just buy some compost to see if it does what they're saying? Well, I think she's wise. And we're on to the third truckload right now. Because Albert said, I've grown tomatoes my whole life, and I've never seen tomatoes grow like this. They started at the bottom, kept coming right on up, and they were as big at the top of the vine as they had been at the bottom. Incidentally, I was over, Marlon has a greenhouse. He said, oh, Darren was with me. He said, oh, you guys want some tomatoes? I just got through picking 35 5-gallon pails of tomatoes. They're right over there, weren't they? We went and got what tomatoes we wanted. We weren't pigs about it, but I still have one that is still left from that. So it works. Raymond, his older brother, the best grower, the young people that I know, he said, usually tomatoes run out of fertility about August. But he said, I quit coiling my vines and doing anything with them. When I went back in the fall, they were loaded with green tomatoes and they were still green as all get out. And so when we brought this last load in, he was out there side dressing in his greenhouse. And the doctor, I gave a bag of this compost to. He said, hey, I got to have some more of that stuff. He says, I've had corn stalks, but I've never been able to have corn. And this year, with that stuff, I had 3 or 4 ears on a stalk. Now, I'm not guaranteeing you that, but I'm just telling you what I was told. And they're buying more, so it must be right. You are going to want microclimate adjusted heirloom seed. You're going to want to know how to save seed. Because if you don't know how to save seed, in 5 years, that vegetable will not be even productive. I enjoy my friends because, Margaret wanted pinto beans. I said, hey, what about pinto beans? They said, we don't grow pinto beans much. I said, well, what's the deal? Well, they're not very productive in this climate. But there is a medium bean, dried bean, that we grow quite a bit of. It tastes pretty good. I went back to Margaret and I said, do you care if it's pintos with not much production or another medium brown bean that will produce? Oh no, I don't care. So I bought her a coffee can full of beans for $5 from my friend. I don't know what she did with them. She may have eaten them. But they know what produces in this climate and what doesn't produce. I don't want to work any harder than I have to. Okay? Temperature. I advocate growing in the ground. That way you can cover crop it all. Let me start showing you some of this stuff. This is a pitchfork for when you get bales of hay and you want to mulch. You need to be careful because, as my friend Albert said to me last week, we must got a bad bale of hay because we put it on our potatoes and they started to wilt. And they died. We raked all of that into the middle, and we burned it, and I'd love to know what to do to get rid of it. So I looked up, I've got to go talk to them tomorrow, because there's some archaea is that word that you need to look up. It eats radiation, hydrochemicals, pesticides, and herbicides. And the guys have been using it to clean up standard farms. You can't certify it as organic, but you can clean it up in one season. So if you have problems like that, this is a Brazilian hoe. It's fairly light, but you can chop whatever. Incidentally, Albert takes a flat file in his back pocket out in when he goes to use it, and he keeps it sharp as a razor. It'll cut right through a 1/2-inch root, not even wince. Okay, I'm showing you this so that you don't go out and buy a tractor between now and the next time, right? You really don't have to. One time I was in Crossville, and I was surfing Craigslist or something, and I saw John Deere tractor for $4,000. And I said, Jill, look, hey. She said, I don't know what you want that for. You've already got two. What do you want with another one? So I went and I looked that up on Tractor House. And that tractor was worth about $22,000 to $24,000. And I said, well, that's how much it was worth, but whatever. You need a wife like this one. I was in about 45 minutes. She said, you ready to go? I said, what are you talking about? I'd already gone somewhere else, surfing on the computer. She said, well, I figured out where I'll get the money if you want to go check out that tractor. Well, it turned out it was a scam, so she was safe and so was I. This is a Broad Fork. Yep. All you need, you use this Brazilian hoe you terminate the crop, your cover crop. You kill it with black plastic. The covering off of a billboard is the cheapest I know. If you know somebody that changes billboards, whatever, you terminate the crop, and then you use your Brazilian hoe to make a bed. You use your Broad Fork to open up this is all the tillage you got. All right? You compost it, and then you have your transplants out of a tray. The reason you use a transplant tray is there are 72 plants in this tray, and they'll spend half to 2/3 of their lives right here. You conserve bed space. You only use bed space for maturing plants. Incidentally, how close do you plant these transplant in your beds?
Close as possible.
You don't want the mature leaves to overlap. You want them to touch, not overlap. So you don't waste any bed space. What? Oh, sure. That's why I told you that. Some of them will be lettuce. Some of the beets will be real close. Lettuce will flop out. You know, it just depends. What? Oh, you plant them off to the side and let them vine. Because they're going to take sweet potatoes and corn and squash, cucumbers, unless you grow them on a trellis. You take up a lot of space. Okay. Sunlight. Oh, the reason I do it out in the field is toward the end, middle of summer, toward the end, I begin planting all my crops in one area. And then I've got these galvanized hoops that I put in. I've got that white cloth that shades them from freezing. The moisture will condense and protect them. When the freezing wind comes along, you put plastic over it. And you put something on, you can harvest out of that all winter long, cover it back up. All you've got, your roots have to be above 55 degrees for plant growth. The top doesn't have to be, it can still be in the refrigerator. But your roots have to be to get growth, okay? Oh, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you about the Amishmen north of, up in Halls, out of Knoxville. About 4 o'clock in the morning, I was waiting to get mushroom compost. I don't use it anymore because I don't like the syringes that I found in it when I bought a tractor trailer load. But the guy ahead of me, his name was Stooksbury, and in his dump, there's not much to do at 4 o'clock in the morning. Bunch of trucks waiting to get loaded with mushroom compost. He said, you know, there's some Amishmen up here in Halls. They've got grocery carts. The guy has a greenhouse, and he's got 4-inch pipe that has risers, 2-inch risers, and he's got his strawberry plants in socks. He has a smaller black hose in that 4-inch pipe that's hooked up to a hot water heater. And in his 4-inch pipe, he's got hydroponic solution. So he grows strawberries and picks his strawberries, and then he pulls the grocery cart out of his walk-in deep freeze, where the other strawberries have overwintered. And he takes these socks out, puts those socks in, and he's growing one crop right after the other strawberries. It doesn't matter what season it is, he's growing strawberries. Well, you learn a lot if you listen. Question? All right. Sunlight. Most of our vegetable crops require full sunlight. Weeds, mulch. You want to be able to feed the microorganisms. You don't want to kill them with tillage. You don't want to kill them with harsh chemicals. You want to feed them vegetative matter. That's what they feed on. If you go down the road and you see a bunch of corn stalks in the field, what does that tell you? That farmer is using commercial ag, because if he wasn't and he just went over the top of those, the microbes will eat all those corn stalks in a matter of months. But he has a sterile field because he's killed all his beneficial microbes. Pests. To get rid of pests, we'll talk more about pests and disease. But if you get above 5% soil organic matter, you probably won't have a whole lot of problem with pests. Fertility. Your secret to fertility is in your parts per billion trace minerals. You need some trace minerals. You can do all sorts of things. I used to use sea minerals. But after Fukushima Daiichi, I quit that. I use pink Himalayan salt, or metabasalt, which is a volcanic rock dust out of Virginia. It's the nearest place I can find it. But you need trace minerals for taste. And you need to have intelligent tillage and animals. Animals will do some of that tillage. We've talked about this. Permanent in-ground beds termination, tarp or mulch, compost, manure, worm castings. My favorite is this controlled microbial compost, Terra Preta. There are some handouts up here. Intelligent tillage, broad fork, spader, transplant, and mulch. Beds are cover cropped when not growing crops, then terminated and replanted. If you can use a crimper, and some of the guys there in Englewood have hand crimpers. A crimper is just a roller with crimping bars on it, and you just roll it through whatever. Now, if your cover crop is like my cover crop out on the field, every time between mowing, it's about above my waistline. You're going to have something to pull that crimper. But what you do is you crimp it, those bars on it, cut the stems and kill the crop, and you leave that crop in place as a mulch. There are, in commercial operations, a one-pass crimp and plant operation.
Nice.
Slickest system I know of. And they get better than normal production. Compost extract is sprayed every other week. That you take this, there's an extract grade, and the guys in Englewood just bought an extractor, compost extractor, and they're producing compost extract. The idea is to coat the plant with beneficials. There's no room for the pathogens to grow. You give them foliar feeding and deal with the fungus. And then, some of you may know this, some of you may not. Every insect has an exoskeleton, okay, that is comprised of chitin. Second most prevalent compound after cellulose. There is in vegetables what is known as chitinase. Now, for those of us who've studied, ACE does what?
Enzyme.
Yeah. So everything that bites, sucks, or chews starts to dissolve. And when that part that bites, sucks, or chews of an insect dissolves, they don't have any way of eating. And they kick up and kick the bucket. And that's music to my ears. And so what these guys are doing, what Jonathan Keller is doing, is he's spraying compost extract one week. In the next week, he sprays this chitinase. Oh, incidentally, there's a bacteria that produces chitinase as well. And he's going through the whole season, and he says, yeah, they're out there, but they don't bother my production that much. Yes?
What do you recommend for small backyard growers to be able to easily, I'm the chief referee person, the compost extract, give some small examples of ability to do this, like with whatever we've got.
Repeat the recording.
What do you do? How do you do it? You get a Solo backpack sprayer, and you buy compost extract. Okay?
What about your own compost pile? Can you make your own extract, and can you use a smaller sprayer?
You can, but if you're going to do it effectively, you're going to have those microbes, the temperatures. What we now know is that the things that cause plants to grow are ammonia is the best one I know of. I started to say aromatic, but volatile organic compounds, VOCs. And you've got to take in that decomposition process, you have to sequester those volatile organic compounds. That sunlight energy that's going to escape off into the air if you don't grab it. And that's what those microbes are for.
They're stabilizers.
Yeah, they stabilize and multiply it, and yeah. So, yes, you could probably do it, but it'd be an involved process. And rather than try and do that involved, I'd rather do a whole lot more and do it according. You need to look up controlled microbial compost. There's an iBiblio article that's the best that I know of on Google. Read it.
Is this
Controlled microbial compost, or Siegfried Lübke's compost.
is this in any way associated with like the EM1s and you know, going off in that direction?
Well, it's beyond that.
Sure.
Yeah, it sort of is, but it's beyond that.
Yeah, because that was always a little bit too imprecise for me. I would like to be able to look at the next.
When Chernobyl blew off, okay, just a minute. When Chernobyl went off, the Lübke farm was one of 2 or 3 that had no radiation on their farm.
Nice.
And there's evidence that this compost will reverse genetic modification. Now, if you are sitting back and say, I don't need any of that stuff, the corn you eat will have 4 to 5% genetic modification in it just through contamination. So I don't want any. I don't want to be one of those dead pigs. Okay? What questions can I need to close. And I've got 2 quotations for you. Yes, sir.
How about the compost?
Martins were making a compost tea, and that tea is 1/3 the potency of extract. And they are going to the extract, they're putting it in their drip and spraying it foliarly. So what do I do to not be just once saved, but daily saved? What do I do to be always saved? I believe that I need a daily reset. And one of my uncle's favorite quotations was this one. Consecrate yourself to God in the morning. Make this your very first work. Let your prayer be, take me, O Lord, as wholly thine. I lay all my plans at your feet. Use me today in thy service. Abide with me and let all my work be wrought in thee. This is a daily matter. Each morning consecrate yourself to God for that day. Surrender all your plans to Him to be carried out or given up as His providence shall indicate. Say, I am the purchased possession of Jesus Christ, and every hour I must consecrate myself to His service. Thus, day by day, you may be giving your life into the hands of God, and thus your life will be molded more and more after the life of Christ. That's what I want. The reference is HOMI, November 1892, page 11.1.
November what?
November. It's just the November issue in 1892. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. I used to, yes, I wanted to know the return on the gold and silver and stock market and this and that and the other. And I wanted to grow my stuff. And yes, I wanted a self-sufficient homestead. And When I was a teenager, I went to Wilderness Survival School up in Virginia. We go by there every now and then on our way to and from up in Virginia. But that's not going to save me. It's going to be my personal relationship with Him. And to get that, I need to consecrate myself to Him each day. There's contact information. Please text me. Don't call me. I got a new phone and I'm on vacation. I only get calls if I answer them. And they don't even leave messages. So if you want me, text me. I just might call you back or text you back or whatever. What questions can I try and answer?
Do you use Azamite?
You can use Azamite, sure. I use pink Himalayan salt at a spread rate of 400 pounds an acre.
Interesting.
It's mined. Or you can use metabasalt, which is a volcanic rock dust.
What about Redmond salt?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.